Look around you, different things born out of truth and passion. Business software, it's our craft, our identity. Thoughtfully engineered, passionately designed to help you transform your business. Zoho, made in India, made for the world.
There is a fear of the US government shutdown that's been looming. Talk to us about the fact that now that the US markets are hovering around record highs, and with this entire tariff, tussle that's been going on, what does a US government shutdown really imply?
Hi, Snehi and Ankita. Thank you for having me. It is one of those annoying things about investing in the US, in the sense that, unlike in any other countries, there is always these two aspects: a US government shutdown because of an expenditure cut, or the debt ceiling. And we keep hearing this over a period of time. And maybe it just brings in some amount of near-term volatility and uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen. It is not a common thing which is found in many other countries. So this is just something which becomes a big unique thing for the US, time and again. As you said, we had the last government shutdown about 6 years ago. The other way to think about it is one of those checks and balances that people talk about, right? So the US Congress, despite whichever party is in government, the US Congress authorizes spending and debt limits, and hence there is a checks and balance in terms of what can be done. What a particular government, can they do what they want to do, or is it there is checks and balances within the political executives decision making, which ensures that some of this, that there is always a give and take in terms of how the parties react to it. And if they don't, they're not able to do that, and they're not able to arrive at a consensus, then you go into a period like this where there's a shutdown. So this is of course different from the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling has an implication on bond market and on treasuries, and the overall question of default. I think the debt ceiling, they reached a situation before where they increase the debt limit. This is completely on to the spending part of it, but yes, it just creates a sense of uncertainty and volatility in terms of in investors' minds.
Arvind, taking that point ahead, I just want to understand the implication of this shutdown, because no, this is not new. This is something that we had seen in Biden's term as well, but they were able to successfully avoid something like this. Now, on one hand, you have the entire tariff threat that's looming on the entire world from US. On the other, you have Trump's own party that has, some of them have voted against the stopgap wage bill. So what is your take on that, and what kind of confidence does this reflect in the global view when it comes to US and US leadership?
Yeah, in terms of spending, it looks like there is an impasse, and they have not been able to do it. I was just reading some previous ones where it has they reached a agreement within a few hours, and the last one during Trump's administration was almost like 35 days of spending freeze. And the way it works is like, it looks like most will be on government salaries and wages and non-essential government services. So you would, if it continues for a long period of time, you should expect that there will be some weakness in the economy, because people will not get their salaries, or people will not get some government contracts which they were supposed to get, and then there is an expenditure freeze till the time they reach a consensus. So yeah, as I said again, that there is always an amount of volatility and uncertainty that comes about when situations get into this. It's a good way to think from a checks and balance perspective, but otherwise from a volatility perspective, it's not the ideal situation. As you refer to the uh, actions on tariffs and just the other aspects, as I spoke to you last time when I was on your show, uh, there is an element of political risk which was always very low for the US, and maybe that aspect of political risk and economic risk may be increasing, and hence you would see that investors will desire a slightly higher risk premium while investing in the US. It's not getting reflected in any asset class as of now, both on the treasuries and as well as the equities. But it can happen that people will say that there is too much volatile uncertainty in government policy making,
Right, Arvind.
not only about this shutdown, but generally on various other aspects of tariffs and there was 100% tariff on film making, like foreign film making.
Correct, yeah.
We don't even know what that means. So I think there you will see investors expecting a slightly higher risk premium over time if this persists, if this continued uncertain policy making and uncertainty in the government decision making
Right.
process.
Arvind, just want to gauge an economic impact from you, if you can help on that
Yeah.
front. Last time when we've seen this happen, it has affected their GDP by about 0.1 to 0.2%. Where do you think the
Yeah.
impact could be seen the most in terms of US macros?
Yeah, as both markets and economy haven't doesn't react a lot to these kind of shutdowns unless it's a very prolonged one. So if it's like goes into months, then of course the spending freeze and the cut in the economy would ensure that there will be some softness in the economic activity and incomes and employment, especially at a time right now where you have seen softness in wages, right? Wage growth and employment growth hasn't picked up, and they've revised some of the numbers downwards. And this threat that inflation is rising. We've seen some increase in inflation every month over the last 3-4 months, but hasn't been as what people expected. Like given the amount of tariff increase that happened, we haven't seen as big an increase in inflation. So if you put it from that perspective, there should be a slightly bigger impact if it continues for a long period of time. We don't know, and we might also realize that some of the spending freeze were already authorized, and it doesn't get cut. Only a certain amount of spending gets cut. So I don't
Ar-
know the exact details on that.
Right.
Sorry.
Arvind, I'll take a lead from the two things that you just mentioned. One is the labor market, and one
Yeah.
is the slowdown in the inflation that perhaps can be an after effect of the tariffs that are getting imposed. Are we not penciling in?
Correct.
Because if the shutdown happens, it is going to cost the US government approximately $400 million a day. That and also the slowing down of the labor market, which has been a point of concern for the Fed, and the inflation that perhaps they're not penciling in.
Yeah, correct. That what I said was it depends on how long this freeze continues, right? The shutdown, if it continues for a couple of months, then there is a lot of spending which the government would normally do, which is not available to the economy, and then hence you will see impact of that. There'll be people who on furloughs and they will lose their wages, and they will have a temporary freeze on their wage income. The other will be just the spending that the government does, which cannot be authorized given the shutdown. So it really depends on how long. In that, I mean, this is a demand impact in the sense that if this government spending freezes for a long period of time, then there's an impact on demand. The inflation aspect is still looks like it's more supply driven. As tariffs get frozen through, I think there are still indications that the inventory in the US economy was sufficient enough to
Right.
ensure that there are no pass-throughs, or companies have taken some pass-throughs and exporters have taken some impact of the pass-through.
Okay. Point taken, Arvind. Thanks so much for sharing those insights with us. But on that note, we're timed out on this edition of Markets at Noon. You stay tuned to ET now for more news and updates.